All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes. We're going to do another edition of the Bullpen because it's Friday. It's almost the weekend. Weekend means weekend baseball. Texas pitching has basically fallen apart as Texas is swept by the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll get into that and more about the baseball program here. But real quick, before we jump into baseball, congratulations to Bijan Robinson for being drafted number 8 last night in the NFL draft. Excited for him. Excited for Falcons fans, I guess. Think y'all got a good one. Interesting note, that is the first offensive first-round draft pick for the University of Texas since Vince Young. 18 years. Pretty crazy. Congratulations to Bijan. Congratulations to all the guys. There's several guys that look to be drafted. Roschon Johnson, Marvion Overshown. A couple of the big guys on the defensive line. So be pretty interesting to see where all those guys go. Anyway, congratulations to those guys. Congratulations to the program. You know, the draft has been a thing that a lot of people have sort of been able to poke at Texas about, amongst other things, for a pretty good time now, pretty good while now. It looks like Steve Sarkisian's on the right track. He's already got some guys going out the door, and there's a lot of guys on the roster today that are going to get drafted into the NFL as well. Another quick note, we haven't talked about basketball much since the end of the season, really since Rodney Terry was officially named the head coach at the University of Texas, but his tenure as head coach is kind of starting off pretty rough. He's now lost both of the 5-star recruits that he had signed, and these were guys that signed before the whole Chris Beard incident, and guys that have stuck with their commitment until just recently. Ronald Holland announces today that he's requesting to get out of his letter of intent with the University of Texas, citing something about he's not sure about the vision of the program. I don't know a lot of 18-year-olds. There's probably only a handful of them across the country, across the world, really, that even know what the hell vision even means. I don't know. We'll see what goes on with that. And then obviously there's a lot of guys that have that are either transferring off of this team or guys that are flirting with the NBA draft. Basketball program kind of tough shape right now. Anyway, we'll see how that all turns out. It's still early in that whole deal. I think the initial knee-jerk reaction is to say, Texas made a mistake. You know, there was a lot of talk about Rodney Terry being retained and being offered that position because the players loved him, the recruits loved him. There was talk about how he had really recruited a lot of the kids that were on the team this year, and that it wasn't Beard that built that team, built that nucleus of that team. I don't know about any of that stuff, but I know if you're going to say that's the case, it's a pretty big punch in the nuts when all of a sudden you wake up, you're Rodney Terry or your University of Texas. You've hired this guy that, let's be honest, the majority of his coaching career has not been good. It's been pretty average, mediocre, whatever word you want to use. You've hired this guy, and now there's not even really a team left. So I don't know. We'll see how that all works out. Oklahoma series in baseball. Texas came into this series 8-4, atop of the Big 12 rankings. Oklahoma was a 19-19 team overall, 4-8 in the Big 12. I believe they were They were either second to last or dead last in the conference coming into this series. We talked on the last show, the last bullpen, about how Oklahoma's kind of a weird team. Their record's not good at all, and their Big 12 record wasn't good at all. Still not really good, despite the fact that they sweep Texas, bump it by 3 wins. But there was like all these weird things on the schedule that you could look at and go, I mean, like, how are they taking 2 of 4 from Stanford? How are they taking 2 of 3 from TCU? So I made the comment, like, they must be at least a talented roster, and maybe they're just not playing well. I didn't know this, but during some of the games, they're interviewing Skip. Used to be the pitching coach at Texas under Augie Garrido for several years. He's been the head coach at Oklahoma now, I think, for 6. They're interviewing Skip, and Skip's talking all about a lot of injuries they've had. So maybe this is a team that has a bad record because they just haven't had guys that they expected they'd have. I really don't know. There wasn't a lot of detail in the discussions, but he did mention injuries and not being able to have, his entire team together for most of the season. I predicted Texas to win this series and thought they might even have a chance to sweep this series, and I definitely think they needed to sweep this series. At the very least, they needed to win this series. And they just came out and flat laid an egg. Probably one of the worst eggs I've ever seen a Texas baseball team lay in a series. The pitching, again, was absolutely horrendous. We've talked about, over the course of the last couple Big 12 series, there's been like these little mini meltdowns. In the Baylor series, it cost them a game. In the Oklahoma State series, it cost them a game on Sunday. It almost cost them 2 games at Baylor. And you could argue it cost them all 3 games against Oklahoma. Friday night, the pitching was actually pretty good. Lucas Gordon pitched the gym. Actually, Lucas Gordon right now is probably the only guy on that entire pitching staff that you can count on every single weekend to just go out there and do his job. What's a pitcher's job, you might ask? Throw lots of strikes. So there was 4 walks Friday night, 1 hit by pitch Friday night, and 11 Ks. Just, pretty decent. They did walk in the winning run, however, which I hate to see. Bases loaded. They bring in Ace Whitehead, and they call Ace Boogie. I have no idea where that came from. So if you hear me say Boogie, talking about Ace Whitehead, it might come out. I don't know. They brought him in with the bases loaded and 1 down, I believe. He got a quick out and then walked a batter to walk in the winning run. For the second straight Saturday, the starter couldn't get past the second inning. 2 Saturdays ago, the starter couldn't get past the first inning. This weekend, it was Staley. This guy had a really good first inning. We were at our son's games. Our son had doubleheader on Saturday. We're sitting there. I got my little earpiece in. I'm listening to the games, listening to Craig Way call the game. He started off great. And you're thinking, okay, that's what we need, right? He had a good first inning. Comes in the second inning, walks 3 straight batters on damn near 9 pitches. I think he threw 12 pitches in that inning before he got lifted. Saturday total, there was 8 walks, 2 wild pitches, and 1 hit batsman. And then Minchie, who's a freshman, has pitched well out of the bullpen a couple of times this season, but he hasn't been used all that much. He gets the Sunday start. He goes 1 1/3. with 3 walks, 1 wild pitch, and a hit by pitch. That's a total of 8 walks, 2 wild pitches, and 1 hit batsman in that game. So in total, Texas pitching gave up 20 walks, 4 wild pitches, and 3 hit batsmen for the series against Oklahoma. I don't get it, man. I don't understand. Somebody out there help me. I don't. You know what's the crazy thing too about all these walks? A lot of these walks and a lot of these and even hit batsmen come with when the pitchers are ahead in the count. 0-2, 1-2. Like why are we getting 2 quick strikes on a batter and then spending the next 3 pitches trying to pitch around them, rolling up a full count, and then putting ourselves in a pressure situation where now you got to throw. Now you feel like you got to throw a perfect pitch because you want to throw a strike. You don't want to walk, but you also don't want to groove it and get smacked. I don't. It's got to be a philosophy. There's no way these guys come out there, deal 2 quick strikes, and then forget how to fucking throw a strike. Or physically can't throw a strike. I don't know. I don't buy that. I would really like to know what the philosophy is there and why the philosophy is there and why, if that is the philosophy, it hasn't changed because it doesn't work. Offensively in the series, they had 23 hits rather, 20 strikeouts, which is down a little bit from a couple of series ago where they were racking up 30. Stranded 22 base runners against Oklahoma. That's not good. They hit a couple home runs and had 7 extra base hits in total. It's okay. Top 5 hitters for Texas in the Oklahoma series. Not in the Oklahoma series, but the top 5 hitters for Texas in the lineup, the guys that are statistically the 5 best hitters in that lineup, went 15 for 55 total, which is 272 with 7 RBI against an OU staff that has a nearly 6 ERA coming into the weekend. So because of this sweep, Texas drops from 1st to 4th in the Big 12 standings. Probably cost them any chance they had of hosting a regional. I think the only chance they have to host a regional now is to sweep the rest of the series they play. They basically have to be perfect from here on out. So the Oklahoma series was just, we'd seen them struggle at times against Oklahoma State. We saw them struggle at times against Baylor. But they managed against Baylor to win the series. They were real close to winning the series against Oklahoma State. They were competitive. Even with the mistakes, they were competitive. Against Oklahoma, they just did not look competitive. I mean, they looked like a fucking high school team. Or sounded, I was listening, sounded like a high school team. Just wild pitch, hit batsman, walk. You just can't do that. I mean, you can't do that and expect to win in college baseball. They turn around on Tuesday with a midweek against Texas Southern. The Bats pounded the shit out of them. 18 hits, 18 runs on 18 hits. Whoop-de-doo. Texas Southern's not a very good baseball team. Pitching was good enough, I suppose. They won 18-3. But again, not a very good baseball team they're playing. State of the team address. We do this every week on the bullpen, and we'll do it every week once the season starts and from the cheap seats. We talk about football. I think the wheels are coming off the pitching staff wagon. I mean, these guys have been right there, just teetering between like shit and good. And now I think we've tilted. I think we've rolled this way, and now we're tilting off into the shit a lot more. They just don't have. They don't even. I mean, it's crazy. I talked a lot earlier this season and really up until the last few weeks about how the pitching staff was the strength of this team. They kept them in games early in the season when the offense was sputtering and the offense really couldn't produce anything. You wouldn't believe that they actually won some games earlier this year because of their pitching if you watch them pitch the last few weekends. It's a fucking circus. So I think the wheels are off there. I mean, we'll get to see. They still have time to salvage it. There's a shred of there's time left and there's a shred of hope because we've seen it. We've seen the staff be really good. But man, I just don't think we're going to see it. I feel like everything this team had working for them, they've lost confidence. I think the bottom half of the lineup is essentially useless offensively. I mean, every once in a while they do something. There's really no consistency there. Sadly, that group is led by Mitchell Daly, who's a junior, who should be a guy that this team can depend on to go take quality at bats and put the ball in play. And, he should be a leader on the team. And sadly, we've talked about it, man. The guy came in as a freshman, started as a freshman at second base, which I think is his natural position, which has jack shit to do with his offensive production. But I feel like defensively, that's where he should be playing. And he had a really good freshman season. He ended up hitting, I think he hit like right around 320, 315, 320, something like that. He did really well. And then last year, it was a little worse. It was under 300. And this year, it's down in the low 200s. I mean, every once in a while, he'll come out and, time one up and put it over the fence. Get some RBIs, maybe get some confidence. But he can't consistently put the ball in play. He's not the only one, but he's a guy, again, you look to, he's a 3-year veteran. He's been to the College World Series 2 times. A lot of his at-bats today are just not even competitive. I think that's the other thing. You don't always have to win at the plate. You're not always going to win at the plate. The best hitter in the world is not always going to win at the plate. In fact, they're going to fail way more times than they win at the plate, but you need to be competitive, and he's just not. So many of his at-bats, you watch him go up there with a shit-eating grin, and I don't know what it's about. Maybe it's a nervous grin. I have no idea, but maybe it's just like I'm faking like I'm happy because I'm struggling, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about it. I don't know. I don't know what's going through his head, but he's got like this little shit-eating grin, which annoys the hell out of me. He steps into the batter's box. The pitcher grooves one for a strike that he just fucking stares at like he's never seen a pitch before. Like he doesn't know what to do. It looks like what it would look like if I got up to bat against these guys. And then the next pitch is almost invariably a breaking ball that he just fucking hacks at and misses and is not even close to hitting. And then sometimes he'll strike out on a close pitch looking or swinging. Sometimes he'll hit like a little dinky, ground ball or a pop up but it's just a lot of, and they're real quick at bats. They're not competitive. He watches the first pitch nearly every time, which I hate. If you're a baseball person, tell me what you think about the first pitch. I can understand the concepts and the logic behind both. The way I look at it, as a hitter in college baseball, you're not going to get a lot of pitches to look at. You're not going to get a lot of good pitches to hit. And more than likely, the first pitch you're going to see is going to be one of the best pitches you're going to see the entire at bat. Why these guys watch them go right over the plate on the first pitch, it makes no sense to me. So let me know what you think. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com. Let's talk about baseball. Send me your thoughts. David Pierce, man, lost his entire coaching staff off the team last year, literally the entire coaching staff. I've heard rumors that he's very abrasive. He's hard to be around. He's not a easy person to work for. Kind of like a Nick Saban maybe of baseball, except without any championships at all. Like no hardware to show for his jackassery. And I could see that. You watch them interview him, they interview these guys in the, between innings during the game sometimes. And he just seems like I don't know. He just comes off a certain way. Anyway, that's a rumor. I don't know. I don't have any firsthand experience with the guy, but I heard he just basically ran all those guys off. I heard he ran, what's that kid, Gavin Cash that transferred to Tech and now is like tied for the nation lead in home runs and all kinds of other shit and offensive. He's basically killing the ball. He almost beat Texas by himself, despite the fact that Texas swept Texas Tech. Gavin Cash, like, single-handedly kept them in that series offensively. Ran him off. But the thing that's killing me about David Pierce this year is he's still tinkering with the lineup. He's still tinkering with the pitching rotation. I think there's time for that during the season. I think it was before conference play started. By the time you get to conference play, you should know what you have. You shouldn't have to do any more tinkering. And when you tinker like that, you raise doubt. If I'm the Sunday guy and all of a sudden the next series there's a new Sunday guy, you just raised some doubt in my mind about, my ability or where I stand just generally with the team or with my position on the team, which again is okay. But you can't be doing that in the middle of Big 12 play. You should not still be, unless you've got injury. And I get, like, there's certain situations where you got to tinker. I get that. I mean, I'm not saying that the second Big 12 play starts, you never change anything. But he's still doing like wholesale, like, what the fuck is going on? How is this Minchie guy all of a sudden a starter on Sunday? What happened to the other guys? The other thing it does for pitchers is they never know what they're going to be doing the next weekend. Like, they don't know, am I going to be out of the bullpen this weekend? Am I going to be a starter this weekend? It's like, and there's a different mentality between both of those things. I think his timing on pitching changes is just brutal. And it's been like that since he's been here. This isn't a new thing. It's not a new observation from me regarding David Pierce. He let his starter on Saturday walk 3 straight batters before he decided to make a change. I don't know how you do that. So now you're bringing in a kid. You're saying, "Hey, man, I know you didn't cause any of this shit, and you probably weren't prepared to come into the second inning of a freaking baseball game. But guess what, man? You got to come in with the bases loaded and no outs. Try to get us 3 outs and don't give up any runs." There's a lot of pitchers that can respond to that. They're called Major League Baseball players. There's not a lot of college kids that are going to come in and respond to that well. So I don't know. State of the team address. It's not looking good the rest of the season. I still think this team has talent. I still think this team could figure it out and make a like a nice little run. And by that I just mean, make it out of a regional. They could do that. They could go into the Big 12 tournament, have a nice showing there, get into the postseason tournament and make a run if they can get hot again. And I don't just mean hot hitting, I mean hot pitching. Like find their rhythm again, gain their confidence back. They could do that. But it sure ain't looking good. One bright spot is Tanner Witt is now ready to start pitching. I'm excited about that. I'm excited for him. I couldn't imagine it's been over a year since that kid's pitched competitively. I can't imagine what that feels like to be as talented as Tanner Witt is, to be so highly thought of going into the season last year, and then to have that type of injury and have to wait over a year to come back and pitch. And then also he's kind of sitting there watching his team just really struggle. He's watching his pitching staff mates just really struggle, and I know he wants to get in there and help. He's going to be back for the TCU series. More than likely, he'll pitch an inning. I heard he's going to pitch an inning, which probably means, maybe 15, 20 pitches. He's not going to stay long. So let's talk about this TCU series. Earlier in the season, you look at this TCU series and you think to yourself, this might be a good. I even said it on the show. I said the TCU series might decide who is the Big 12 champion. And of course, this is after Texas has swept Texas Tech. They beat Texas A&M. The glory days, the glory times of this season. But I said, man, that TCU series looks like it might be a thing. Well, now both of these teams come in, they're unranked. Texas is sitting 4th in the Big 12. TCU sitting 7th in the Big 12. They're under 500 in the Big 12. This is a series Texas needs, and it's going to be an uphill climb. They got to go to Fort Worth. This team has not been good on the road this year. And they're really, really struggling on the mound, as we've talked about a lot lately, unfortunately. But they need to win this series to get back on track for the postseason. I feel like I think a sweep would be huge. And again, I really think for Texas to host a regional, I think they've got to sweep. They got to win their final 9 Big 12 games. My opinion. Nobody cares about my opinion. The selection committee certainly doesn't care about my opinion. TCU's hitting 277 as a team with a 5.5 team ERA. Not very good. Hey, but they're just a tick better than Oklahoma was last weekend, and the offense really, really struggled against Oklahoma. Texas hitting 289 as a team. Still holding on to a sub 4 ERA, 3.8 ERA. I have no idea where that stands nationally anymore. A few weeks ago, that was good enough for top 10. Again, we mentioned Tanner Witt is going to get to take the mound. It's going to be on Monday. The series got pushed a day because of weather. So they'll start 6 p.m. Saturday, 3 p.m. Sunday, and then 1 p.m. on Monday on the ESPN family of channels. I assume. I know that Saturday and Monday games will be on ESPN. It's still listed as Sunday to be determined. I can't imagine that's not on ESPN Plus. My prediction for this series is I have no fucking clue, man. I have no idea which Texas team's going to show up. Is it the Texas team that can hit the ball? Is it the Texas team that can put the ball over the fence a few times with runners in position? Is it the Texas team that can string together, 2 or 3 hits at the right time to build a nice lead or to have a comeback like they did against Kansas State? We see a Texas pitching staff that can throw strikes. Just throw strikes. It's got to be really frustrating to be a college baseball head coach and to watch guys go up on the mound and just not be able to throw strikes. Just like refuse to throw strikes. I don't understand what goes on in a kid's head where missing the strike zone is better than throwing a strike and someone just beating you. What I feel like these guys don't understand is you could throw the ball right over the middle of the plate, thigh high, and it's not always going to get smoked. You're going to miss it sometimes. You're going to miss it enough that you clink it down to an infielder or you pop it straight up in the air. Even if you contact the ball, there's a ton of room for error there. So I don't understand why these guys are just so scared to put the ball over the plate. Make them beat you. Don't beat yourself. You'll never get an out walking somebody. Promise you that. So I don't really have a prediction for this series. I mean, I guess if I was pressed to make a prediction, I would say Texas will lose it. TCU's struggling right now too. I know both teams are talented, but I don't know which one can find a way to get their shit together and win a series this weekend. We'll see what happens. Join us next week on the Bullpen. We'll talk about this TCU series. We'll see if our half-ass prediction of Texas losing the series is right or wrong. There's no midweek for Texas next week. That means they get to rest, but that also means they may not get a win this week. We may not be talking about any wins the next time we do the Bullpen. Subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you don't go somewhere to listen to podcasts, go to Buzzsprout. You can check it out at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see my ugly face and my sweet sunglasses talk about Texas sports. I stream to YouTube. I stream to Facebook. You can find me on both, as well as TikTok and Twitter at Horntakes. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your comments, questions, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Hook 'em.